Hey everybody, how are you? This is Charles here again. Today I want to welcome you to the show, The Conversation, where we talk about a lot of trending sports topics. And this week, it's almost the end of the week, it's Saturday here. And I got some pretty cool topics I want to talk to you guys about, just give you my opinion on, and I'll definitely like to know what you guys think about it. So the first thing we want to talk about, there's been a lot being made about player movement. A lot of people have been saying, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Now, players are doing a new thing where they're actually able to break out of their contracts and just go to their management, go to their GMs or presidents or whoever, owners, and say to them, hey man, listen, I know we just signed this contract. I know I signed for 4 years, but guess what? I want to go play for somebody else. And, this has been bringing a lot of, problems in the NBA as of recent, because contracts are no longer being respected. And the funniest thing is, if you look in the NFL, they don't really have guaranteed contracts. In the NBA, they have guaranteed contracts. So it's like me saying I want to go play for the New York Knicks for the next 2 years. I signed a $100 million deal. A year and a half from now, I go, I don't really feel like playing with the Knicks. One of my friends is calling me from the Los Angeles Lakers. Let me go play with them. I go to management and request a trade. And you can understand the type of pressure that puts on, the management, because they themselves are saying to themselves, hey, listen, we're doing all of these things, trying to get all these resources to acquire these players, getting the right coaching staff, spending money to get the right coaching staff, doing all these different things with our marketing, creating jerseys, doing all these different things, getting the fans excited. And then a year from now, the player gets up and says, hey, I want to change markets. So you can imagine how the teams feel. But on the other hand, a lot of players are saying, well, listen, teams have been doing this since forever. They've been coming to us and, we signed these contracts. We're trying to be loyal to them. And then you wake up in the middle of the night and your agent is calling you and telling you, hey, listen, you just got traded. You're going to be playing for X, Y, and Z team. So there's been this back and forth. And in the CBA, I think this is some of the things that they've been arguing. Now, NBA players have more cachet than NFL players. NFL players, you play for the team. NBA players, you play, it's a star-driven game sport, whereas in the NFL, it's a team-driven sport. That's why the teams are so successful, and rarely the players become as successful and popular and get as much money as NBA players do. So the thing is, this has become something that's very problematic for the NBA. And with the recent movement of Paul George from the Oklahoma City Thunder to the LA Clippers, a lot of GMs and a lot of team owners have been up in arms. And they just recently had a meeting. I think it was in Vegas, where a lot of the owners, it was a very contentious meeting, because people are like, hold up, wait a minute. We as owners, we feel like we're powerless, in the sense that, yes, we have the power, but I think it's fair that we should have the majority of the power. Now, some people may be watching this video and saying, hey, listen, that's a little bit too much. It's not like it's not like the players are livestock and you own them. Well, sure, they're not, but you have to think of it from the standpoint as a team owner. If you're a business owner and then you're signing contracts, you're doing deals with people, and all of a sudden the deals that you were thinking that were ironclad, all of a sudden they get broken, then what is the process? What is the point of even having a contract? And I think this is an issue that the NBA is going to have to rectify moving forward, because you can't have a situation where on the one hand you have teams going out and spending all these resources to acquire these players, because they're trying to sell it to their markets and ultimately generate, revenue for their teams. And then the next thing the players getting up and saying, hey, I want to go play with that guy. And you have to honor that request, because if you don't trade them, what's going to happen is you're going to have players in the locker room that are disgruntled. They're not going to really want to be there. They're most likely not going to play up to their potential. So, and then at the end, you're still going to have to pay this guy. So you can see that the position that the teams are in. And Sam Presti of the Oklahoma City Thunder actually came out and said that no, the trade request by Paul George was actually not mutual. But Paul George, I think 2 days ago, came out in his press conference with Kawhi Leonard saying it was mutual on all ends. It was an amicable parting. All of us wanted to go our own separate ways. We all agreed upon it. And Sam Presti, the GM of Oklahoma City Thunder, comes out and says, no, it wasn't amicable. We didn't want to let him go. So you can just imagine, the chaos all of this is beginning to create in the NBA. And I think it's something that, the NBA has to look at moving forward. Adam Silver is going to have to come up, with a system in which both parties can at least be satisfied to some degree. Not that everyone is going to be 100% satisfied, but player contracts and all of these things is something that has to be rectified. And I think it's something that the NBA is going to have to look into going forward. Now, the next topic I want to talk about is, we're getting a lot of debate into the coming season, is that of all the recent GMs and NBA executives that were polled, 20 of them were given votes to see who they think is the best player in the NBA. And the funniest thing was 12 of those votes went to Kawhi Leonard. I think 6 went to Giannis and 2 went to James Harden. Well, the only problem is that LeBron James got no votes. Now, I think this is the first time in about, 10 years, in a decade, that LeBron James doesn't have a vote as the best player in the NBA. Whoa. It's like we're going through it's almost like the ground beneath us is shifting. For when, LeBron was considered to probably be the best basketball player in the last 10 years. And now, no, for GMs to not even have him voted, he didn't even receive one vote. So I think it's eye-opening, but it's also telling you where the NBA is going. I think what's happening is that we're transitioning out of the LeBron James era into the era of the unknown. Because we don't know if it's going to be the Kawhi Leonard era. We don't know if it's going to be the Brooklyn Nets era. I think in order to have an era, you have to be able to dominate for at least 5 consecutive years. Whereas, it goes without a doubt that you're the best player. But there's so many good players in the league right now. You still have KD, you still have Kawhi, you still have Giannis, you still have AD. So it's really up in the air right now, but it's still a telling sign that LeBron James did not receive, a vote out of all of these, the 20 GMs and executives. He didn't receive one vote to be the best player in the NBA. That is astonishing, but that's where the NBA is now. And it's just going to be really fascinating to see where the NBA goes in the future, and is Kawhi Leonard by the end of next year? Are people going to be saying the same thing? Is it a recency bias? Is it because we just saw him in the NBA Finals? Is that what it is? Is what have you done for me lately? Syndrome that's going around. Who really knows? No one knows. But it's going to be interesting to see what the sentiment is going to be like moving forward. Because if in the next year they're saying somebody else, then somebody else all of a sudden became the best player, then we know not to take these executive polls too seriously, because you know that people's opinions are going to change year in and year out. Now, the final thing is Giannis Antetokounmpo recently came out and basically said that he feels like he's only at 60% of his maximum potential. 60%. Well, Giannis is the reigning NBA MVP. And to be MVP and only be at, 60% of your capacity is actually quite unbelievable. Giannis averaged like 27 points, 12 rebounds, X amount of blocks a game last season. So for him to go into next season saying that he can get about 40% better, well, let's think about it. What does that really mean? Well, we all saw Giannis in the Bucks versus the Raptors in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference Finals, and we all know what was the major deficiency that Giannis Antetokounmpo had. The major problem he had was once the defense created a wall and you put a really good on-the-ball defender on him, you created this wall and he couldn't drive, he couldn't slash, because what will happen is when Giannis drives and he slashes to the paint, he collapses the defense and opens up space for the shooters. So that's his specialty. But since Kawhi Leonard was such a good on-the-ball defender and can play him face up, they would give him this space and force him to shoot these mid-range jumpers. And he showed the ability not to be able to do that consistently. So I think going into this season, Giannis is saying to himself, hey, you know what? I need to develop my mid-range game. I need to be able to have a pull-up jumper. I need to be able to have a set shot, be able to shoot the 3-ball more consistently. So I think that's what he means by improving by this extra 40%. I think what else he means is that the way he thinks the game. I think he's saying, the way he thinks the game can be improved upon. Maybe he can see different things on the court. Maybe he can do more film study. Maybe he can watch other players that play similarly to he does that came in the past, and see how he can draw parallels and see what they did successfully, try to integrate that into his game. Maybe that's what he means. Who knows? But for him to say that there's a 40% gap to where he wants to be, that means that if he fills that gap, he's going to be the greatest player of all time. Now, I don't know if Giannis is going to end up being the greatest player of all time, but it seems to be the challenge that he sets himself. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see what type of progression Giannis is going to be able to make over the next coming years. I don't think he's going to be able to reach his peak by next year. I think there's always room for improvement. For instance, I've never seen Giannis hit a turnaround jump shot. I've never seen him hit a fadeaway before. He can definitely integrate that into his game. So I think there's much more room for improvement, but I don't think you're going to see 100%. I don't think you're going to see that extra 40% added to his game by the end of next season. I think there's a progression and there's an arc. Most great players get better over time. If you look at Michael Jordan, he was an amazing attacker, He was great at slashing and, doing all these things, but he really developed himself into a great jump shooter as time went on in the NBA, and that's when he just became pretty much automatic from the mid-range. So these are the basic hot topics that happened this week in basketball, and I just wanted to give you guys a recap of what happened. What I want to know is what you guys think of everything that I said and what's happening in the NBA. Do you think LeBron James should have got some more votes? What do you think about player movement? Do you think players should be able to just break their contracts whenever they want to? And do you really think that Giannis is going to get that much better? Is there that much room for improvement in this game in this upcoming season? That's what I want to know from you guys. But for now, this is the conversation for this week. I'll catch up with you guys next week. Have a fantastic weekend. Peace.